Java speedrun with me, Vince. Today, we're going to be covering the conditional statements, which is like an if statement, and we're going to be tackling challenges 15 to 18. Now, I have no idea why they skipped like 12, 13, and 14, but let's just get on with the challenges. So first, the variable num holds the integer user input. Write a conditional statement that does the following. If num is positive, print number is positive. Num is negative, print the number is negative. Okay, so first we want to talk about what an if statement is. If statement checks if a condition is true, and if it is, it runs the code inside it. So if something is true, then it will run all of the code between these curly brackets. Okay, so like in this case, if number is positive, so then if number is greater than 0, then we want to print the number is positive. So system.out.println num is positive. Now, we could just write another if statement here, like if num is less than 0, but we want to be more efficient with our code, and so we're going to turn this into an else if statement. An else if statement checks if the first condition was true. If the first condition was true, and if all of this code executed in here, then it will do nothing. It will skip all of the code inside its curly brackets. However, if the first condition was false, that's why we have else. It will check if its own condition is true, and if its own condition is true, it will print, well, it will execute all the code inside it. So in this case, if number is less than 0, we want to print number is negative. Okay, so if we run this code and we put 5, we should get 5 as positive, right? But if we put -2, so -2, then we should get -2 as negative. And so the one case we're not covering in this if else if statement is if the input is 0, and it says that there should be no output for 0. Let's just test that. As you can see, there's no output, so this code should work completely fine. And let's just wait for the tests, wait for Java to compile, but otherwise this code should be working well. And as you can see, all our tests are passing. Right, on to the next one. So the variable number holds the integer user input. We want to write a conditional statement that does the following. If the number is even, print the number is even. If the number is odd, print the number is odd. Okay, so how do we check if the number is even? And we're going to bring in an unfamiliar sign, which is called the percentage sign. And it stands for modulo. So what modulo does is it divides this number by whatever's after it and gives us the remainder. For example, the number is 4, so 4 mod 2. This would be 0 because 4 divided by 2 is 2 remainder 0. So it will give us 0. If it was something like 5, then 5 divided by 2 is 2 remainder 1, so it would give us 1. To check if a number is even, we want to check if it modulo 2 is equal to 0. And if it is, we want to print that it's even. So if number modulo 2 is equal to 0, then we can say that system.out.print, and we can put num is even. Now, we could write the else if statement and check if number divided by 2 is odd, but at this point, if a number isn't even, it's odd, and so therefore we can use an else statement. So the else statement is similar to the else if, except it just executes whenever this is false. So if num divided by 2 is not equal to 0, or otherwise, if the remainder of num, if num modulo 2 is not equal to 0, meaning it's odd, we'll just execute whatever code's inside this else statement. And we want to print that the number is odd. So we can now put that the number is odd. And code for the example, our input is 23. So if we put 23, we should get 23 is odd, which is correct because 23 modulo 2 is equal to 1. Now, if we put 36 instead, which is an even number, put 36, then it gets to output 36 is even. So this code should be working perfectly. Now, if you have any questions about these if statements, first of all, I would recommend to put it in our comment section, and we'd always be happy to answer your questions. And let me know if I ever need to slow down and explain these things a bit more. Okay, on to the next one. The variable name holds a string user input. Write a conditional statement that does the following. If the name is Chen, print teacher, otherwise print the student. Okay, we're still going to be using the if statement. So our name is called name, string is called name, and we want to check if this is equal to Chen. Sorry, I forgot to talk about these two equal signs a little. So what these two equal signs are doing is they're checking if the name is equal to this other, or if this variable is equal to this other variable. In this case, it's checking if the name is equal to Chen. So if the name is equal to Chen, then we want to print teacher. So system that out print teacher. And in the earlier tutorials, I was doing print ln, which actually makes it skip a line every time, but it's not necessary, and I'd rather not type 2 extra characters. So I'm just going to go system.out.print instead. And so if we run this code, we input Chen. And put a semicolon, of course. Never forget the semicolons after your code. They can cause a lot of errors. So if we put Chen, it should error out because it's not equal to capital C over here. But if we do change it to a capital C, so if we put like Chen, then this is interesting. Name is equal to Chen. I think I think I've been coding too much Python, so we need to check using an actual method. So the way we check if a string is equal to another string is we have to use the method equals. And if we put the other string in here, in this case Chen, then it will test if this name is equal to Chen, and it will return a boolean. If you remember from episode 1, I told you that a boolean is equal to a true or false, and this is where it comes into handy. So if name equals Chen, then otherwise, if name equals Chen equals true, or if this condition is true, it will it will print teacher. And if it's not true, it will print student. So that's the importance of booleans in conditional statements. And they're also more important in further conditional statements. We'll get to those when we get to them. So now if we put in Chen, it should print teacher, and now our code should be working. So yeah, that's how you compare whether a string equals another string. So as you can see, Chen here should print teacher, everything else should print student. And lowercase Chen should also print student because it's not equal to the real string. Okay, finally on to the last challenge. Given a string variable word, do the following tests. If the word ends in Y, print IES. If the word ends in EY, print EYS. If the word ends in I, print IVES. If none of the above is true, print S. So this is like converting the word from singular to plural in English. And no more than one should be printed. So this is a bunch of chain if statements. Now, there is another way that we could do this called a switch statement. And I'll also show you that because I think they're both good alternatives for what they do. So first, let's do the if statement method. So if word, and we want to check if it ends with, and to do that, we use a method called ends with. So if it ends with Y, it returns a boolean. So if it does end with Y, we'll execute this code. And we want it to print IES, system.out.print IES. Otherwise, else if, and then we want to check if it ends with EY. Ooh, they're trying to trick us. So actually, we want to check if the word ends with ey first, because if the word ends with y, it will all. Sorry, if the word ends with ey, it will always end with y. So we want to put eys. Otherwise, if the word ends with y, so if it doesn't end in ey, but it still ends in y, then we want to print a different thing, ies. Otherwise, if the word ends with I, so we can just copy this and put it there. So if it ends with I, then we want to change it to ives, like knife, knives. Otherwise, we want to print s. So system.out.println s. Always our good friend s. So if we run this code and we say, oh, sorry, I forgot a curly bracket. And let's try and input for all of these values. Variable word of type string. Cannot find symbol. Ooh, what if I did? Let's input.next line. If word.end with ey looks correct. End with. That's a bit weird. Hold on for a second. Yeah, sorry, I'm an idiot. I forgot it's supposed to be ends with. Oops. So just remember that typos, even though you're coding and you're not doing English, are some of the worst enemies you can have in code. So let's try, the word ends in y, y-p. Then let's check if it put, oh, okay, so it ends in ey, so it should print eys, so that's good. What word ends in y? Let's put sticky. Sticky. Let's put ies, like stickies. Let's test it for I. So if a word's like knife, then it should be knives, and otherwise it should print s. So let's just put a random word like beep bop. Beep bop. It should put s. Okay. So this code should work, and if we submit it, then we'll see that, oh yeah, it's cool. But I want to show you an alternative way to do it using a switch statement. And what a switch statement does is it takes a bunch of expressions, I guess, and it will actually, would this work? I'm starting to question whether this would work. It should work, yeah. That's the end of this speedrun. So I hope you liked the speedrun. Hopefully you're more confident with your if statements right now. And now this is one of the foundational coding blocks. So this will enable you to help code more complex and advanced code in the future. I hope you stay with me for these REPL speedruns. If there's anything that you like or don't like, leave a comment. And if you do like this video, make sure to like and subscribe. See you next time.